Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Episode 75 of the Last Round Podcast. We are doing it remotely again, right, Mike? Since we're still obviously in the quarantine world. Doesn't seem like there's going to be an end in sight. What do you think, Mike?
Don't say that. I'm hoping that we can go back to normal by Friday.
Yeah, that'd be pretty nice. That'd be pretty nice. But once again, guys, thank you very much for listening to the Last Round Podcast. Whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, Boxing Socials YouTube, which is our new partner, we appreciate it. So obviously, we're still trying to deliver content for you guys. During these times, everybody's stuck at home, so we're trying to deliver some entertainment for you guys and get on the most intriguing guests in the sport of boxing. And this week is no different in terms of intriguing guests. One of the veteran referees in the game. He's obviously mostly in the California Commission, but he's refereed all over the world. And I'm sure even if we get a lot of hardcore boxing fans here, obviously listening, who 99% of them should know exactly who you are. Jack Reiss joins us this week. Thanks a lot for joining us, Jack.
Thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. So, obviously off the top here, how you holding up during this, crazy time in this world right now?
I'm actually doing really good. Thanks to my wife and stuff. It's giving me, there's always something good that comes out of something bad. Mm-hmm. And the nice part is we're spending more time together than we ever did in the last 36 years. Cooking together, exercising together, cleaning up, and just doing things together that we haven't done. And also, I'm very involved with other aspects of boxing other than just refereeing. I actually teach I'm one of the 2 certified referee instructors in the world for the ABC. So I've always got classes coming up, and I'm putting, because of the demand, myself, I asked Pat Russell, you guys know Pat Russell?
Right.
To assist me. We're going to kind of branch out on our own and offer a referee's course that we teach. We just taught in Vancouver a couple months ago. To anybody who wants to take it, it's good for like a brand new guy. It's good for media if they want to learn more about boxing, and it's good for the seasoned guy who wants to up his game. We're going to show you a roadmap of how to do things. You don't necessarily have to do it our way, but it's a damn good roadmap, and it's tried and tested with all the mistakes we made. So I'm busy. I'm really busy. And then look, I get the opportunity to do this stuff with guys like yourself, and I get to talk boxing. It's great.
That's awesome. And then is there like a website that people could go to like learn more about that endeavor that you have?
Absolutely. The website isn't done yet. I can tell you that everything's forthcoming. I'm going to put it out all over social media once the website's done. But I can tell you, if anybody wants to make plans, we had it scheduled for June 25th and 26th, but obviously that's not going to happen. So The new dates are going to be Labor Day weekend, September 4th, 5th, and 6th. It's going to be a 3-day course, very intensive, 26 hours worth of in-class and in-ring training. It's going to be out here in Ventura at the 4 Point Sheraton, and then we're going to use Robert Garcia's old gym that Igis Klimas owns, with Kovalev and Lomachenko and all those guys training there.
Right.
We're going to take it over on Sunday, have 2 rings going at the same time. I'm going to hire some boxers to come down and walk through the scenarios, and we're going to give the guys the ring mechanics. And you get a lot in 26 hours, and you can beat up when you're done. I can tell you that.
Hey, that sounds sweet. I'm sure you'll get a lot of people wanting to join. And then obviously when you got everything set, you can give us a ring and we'll promote it for you and help you out as well. So
I would love that. That would really be great. Should I just email it to? I got Michael's email.
Yeah. You can just send it over and we can help you out.
That is really nice of you. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So Jack, let's just start from like for boxing fans who obviously know you are, but they don't know your background and how you got to this point. We know your background. I mean, we've been covering the sport for a long time. We've been fans of the sport a long time. We're obviously hardcore boxing fans, but, to the casual boxing fan who might be watching this, who might be listening, tell us how you got into the game of boxing and pretty much how you came to be who you are.
Well, I've always loved boxing. My dad used to encourage my brother and I to box all the time. He was 2 years older than me, and we used to actually put multiple pairs of socks on our hands and go at it. And the fight went in when one of us cried or one of us got a bloody nose. So it didn't go too long because that happened really quick. And then as I got older, I did a lot of that kind of stuff with gloves in the street with a bunch of guys. I grew up in New York and Brooklyn, in the Coney Island section of Brooklyn, and a great neighborhood to grow up in. Not the easiest to grow up in. And if you didn't learn how to defend yourself or at least stand up for yourself, it might not have been so pretty. And I always loved how it felt when, win or lose, I stood up for myself. So I went into that area of boxing and stuff. And when I was a kid playing ice hockey in a travel league, and I lacked skill, but I wasn't afraid to go in the corner and come out with the puck, and no matter what happened in there, and I got in a lot of fights. So I looked for a boxing gym, and the only boxing gym that was near me was Gleason's. And that, for a kid, 14 years old, 13, that was like a 40-minute train ride one way. Right. And they came home at 9, 10 o'clock at night. It just wasn't feasible. So I strolled into a martial arts studio with a very famous guy named Louis Neglia. Mm-hmm. And I started taking martial arts with him, and I actually learned how to punch and learned how to get balance and learn the science behind offense and defense. And then it turned into, 7, 8 years later, it turned into a full-blown amateur kickboxing events and stuff like that. And then I was getting older, and, it was time for me to get on my way because I lacked talent in the kickboxing. My nickname was Canvas Ass. So
was it really?
No, I'm kidding.
I was like, wait a minute, what?
No, I'm kidding. I had a lot of things good and bad in the ring and stuff like that. I busted my jaw in 3 places sparring once, and just I did it. It was a lot of gym wars where I was. It was great, and once you have that in you, that love of competitiveness, one-on-one, testing yourself against another man. And I'm going to tell you something. I'll never forget. I got in shape for this kickboxing match, and I was in such incredible shape. I was actually hurting guys in sparring. He would throw 3 guys at a time with the guys who were training for a fight, 2 rounds with each guy, do 6 rounds for a 3-round fight. And I was hurting guys, and I felt great. And then it dawned on me, wow, what if this guy I'm fighting is in the same condition as me? This is going to be ugly, man. And it really takes a lot of huevos. Yeah. That's why I never call a fighter a bum. It takes a lot of huevos to get in that ring, knowing what you're up against. So then, anyway, make a long story short, I came out to California to rest a little bit from a bout I had. Hurt my foot, my right foot, and I just needed to get my shit together, and I needed to get on with my life. And I one thing led to another, and I got on the LAFD. I became an LA City fireman. That was great. And then I did 31 years with them. And they had competition in all kinds of sports. We have a police fire Olympics that we do locally, and we do a world police and fire games. That's great. And I played hockey for the team, and I also boxed in a tournament, the LA Fire Department against the LA County Sheriffs and LAPD. And I wasn't gonna pass up an opportunity to play operator sheriff. I had to do it, So all kidding aside, I love cops and stuff.
Right, absolutely.
But I got to compete in there, and in fact, some of my closest friends now that work on the commission with us as the inspectors, and some of them we've converted into referees. Started out the same place I did with the police fire Olympic stuff like that, and then Pat Russell and myself and a few other guys who were ex-cops, firemen, and military. We were reffing for the World Police and Fire and the Battle of the Badges because, we're going to look out for those guys. They got to go back to work on the Monday. Yeah. We made some great friends, and we took those guys in. They became inspectors. And I don't know if you know Ivan Guillermo at LAPD and Rudy Barragan. Rudy used to be Chavez, Julio Cesar Chavez and Oscar De La Hoya's sparring partner. He was a fantastic amateur.
Right.
And he knows everything. Just ask him; he'll tell you. And that was a joke, but you didn't get it.
I didn't. It went over my head. It went over my head.
Said, Rudy knows everything. Just ask him; he'll tell you.
I'm gonna ask him.
we put him on as a referee. They're doing great. Their careers are going good. And our lead inspector right now is a former lieutenant with the LA County Sheriffs who fought on the same nights I did. We were in the dressing room together, not against each other.
Right.
His name is Mark Relier. So we got a lot of guys, police, military, fire in there as inspectors and referees and stuff.
What do you think? What do you think? Something that you learned in your firefighter career that you were able to translate into as a boxing referee in a professional sport like that?
Well, I'm very fortunate. Being a fireman, we are all in the Los Angeles City area. We are all EMTs, and me, when I promoted through the ranks and became a captain, I was the captain on a paramedic engine for 20 years. So I went to a lot of shootings, stabbings, beatings, fires, car accidents, where there was trauma on people. So I got comfortable with my EMT skills, and I always had a medic around me. So I'd always ask questions and related to boxing. And I got very, very comfortable with understanding trauma, also reading body language. That's really assisted me in the ring when I have a fighter that gets dropped. And when he gets up, how he's going to respond. But more importantly, when they get cracked and they're getting beat up and they're in trouble, what they're doing, what's their body language. Do I need to get in there even without a knockdown and stop the fight? So it's taught me a lot about learning, getting a baseline on the fighter, what's normal for him, and watching the slow progression of, I'm going to try to get this on the screen, damage as he falls away from his baseline to a point where I feel like he's no longer able to intelligently defend himself. Mm-hmm. And the stuff I got from the fire department was paramount. I feel like it gives me a leg up and a comfortability that I love.
What was the first fight that you actually reffed? Okay, I know you start like in the amateur level and you kind of work your way up, up the ranks and stuff. But what was the first fight, at least in terms of like a shock to you, where you're just like, oh wow, I'm actually hearing between these two guys on television? When you really felt it?
Well, it's a process. So I got to tell you, the very first pro fight I did, I realized this was no game. In my second pro card, not the first fight, or I think it's 2 or 3 or 2 on one card, but the second time I worked, I got booed by 7,000 people, and I realized, welcome to the NFL. What I mean? So, but it was a long process for me to get on. And it wasn't like I just stepped out of one place and into another. So I was ready, and I knew what I was supposed to do, just like other guys, and the seriousness of it. And having the fact that I was punched in the face quite a bit in my lifetime in a lot of different arenas, and that's just with my wife at home, it gives you a better understanding of what these guys are going through, how far to take them out without letting them get hurt. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And like I said, reading the body language, man, it makes a world of difference. And if we get into this a little bit, I'll demonstrate to you. It's not only reading the body language, it's being able to articulate it to someone who maybe is a casual fan and doesn't understand it. Mm-hmm. Because you get questioned. In the old days, when the referee stopped the fight, they'd say, "Hey, how come you stopped that fight?" Right. And he'd go, "That guy took enough. I seen enough." Mm-hmm. Well, that's not good enough anymore with social media and the amount of scrutiny we're all under. Mm-hmm. You got to be able to articulate what you saw so the fans understand. Because the more people we can get to understand, the greater the eyes on boxing will be.
Jack, can you just tell us the process for you from the classroom to the pro ranks?
Yes, and I don't want to tell you guys, the normal process would be to start in the amateurs, but I was fortunate when I decided to do this. And let me say this: I wanted to do this years prior, but for whatever reason, that inner voice talked me out of it a million times. I don't know why, but it did. And I finally said, you know what? I'm going to do this. And I didn't apply till I was in my late 30s. And the process was I just happened to hit upon the first and only time the California State Athletic Commission had a referee training class. And it was a 3-year process. 102, I think, or 98 or something guys and gals applied. And when we were done, 9 people made it. The process was you went to classroom sessions once every 2 or 3 weeks for a year with the likes of Lou Filippo, Marty Denkin, Robert Bird, and really great referees. They brought guest speakers in like Chiquinito Hernandez and guys to speak to us what a fighter was looking for from a referee and give us stories about the seriousness of what we got to take in the ring. Then we in that first year, attitude or missing a class or just total ineptness, you were gone. It got weeded out so fast you wouldn't believe it. There was a guy, I'm not going to mention his name on camera. You guys off camera.
Right.
Between us. There was a lot of nepotism in that class. I remember sitting next to this gal I met, and she looks at me and she goes, "Is it okay if I curse?" Is it okay if I curse?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Oh, I thought that was a part of the story.
She tapped me and she goes, "So who's your father?" Because she looked around that classroom when it was all the guys' kids.
Right.
Jenkins' kids, Richard Steele's kids, Jenkins' kids, all their kids or relatives or bankers or friends. And I said, "No one." I go, "Who's yours?" And she goes, "No one." And I said, "We're fucked." You are,
There's no connect.
That's what it was like. But you know what? Those guys, God bless them, in that athletic commission, they weeded those guys out. And some of the kids didn't think they had to show up because their dads, whatever, and they were gone. And they were gone from the course. So it was pretty good. So the first year was that classroom session, and after about 3 or 4 months, about maybe 5, 6 meetings, they started breaking us off into groups with a mentor/referee, and he would take us in the gym and have us in the ring with the guys while they were sparring and training for their fights. So I got to get in the ring with Cobrita Gonzalez, Shane Mosley, all these guys, Rudy Hernandez, Chiquinito Hernandez, Oscar De La Hoya. It was insane. Shane Mosley a whole bunch of times. And Santa Cruz, the older brother. And I remember when Jose and Leo were just little kids, man, running around the ring while their brothers were training. It was unbelievable. And I was in the ring with their brother quite a bit. Reggie Johnson, Kenny Norton was training them. And, we'd be walking around in a goofy bow tie and blue shirt during sparring. And Kenny Norton would grab your pants and I'll let you go. But, I mean, the memories were unbelievable. No, so then, so that went on for a year. And all along the way, every weekend or every week that you were there, like I said, a couple times a month, you had to take a little written quiz. Failure of the quiz, you were out. And at the end of the year, you had to declare if you're a ref or a judge or both. And in California, when you ref, you have to judge. You're both. So I declared both, and that really weeded out a lot of guys. And then they put us in the ring with 2 of the referees acting as fighters, and they had a routine that they were going to go through. And you stayed in a room alone. You couldn't watch anybody else. And they, really put a lot of pressure on you. And when you walked in there, they had all the other not the other referees you were training to be peers. They had seasoned referees, Bob Bird, Pat Russell, all these guys grading you. And you had to act as if you walked into the arena. And what you're going to do, you got to check the ring. You got to, do all the things that you need to do. Then you get in and you have the 2 fighters. So you got to go and you got to check the gloves. You got to, make sure their trunks are okay. And then you had to bring them to center, start the fight. And then they threw a scenario at you. And I got to tell you, the hard part was those guys were such terrible actors because they really wanted to get hit. So it was confusing on what, did he just get knocked down or did he dive to the floor?
Right.
Did he get hit while he was down? Because they would swing, they'd swing and they'd miss or they just touch him. But it all worked out. They weeded out a lot of people, and I got through. And then the second year, full year, was you worked 1, possibly 2 fights once a month. The other seasoned refs chipped in $25 each from their paycheck and gave us money for gas money and a couple of bucks. You made about $50 that night. Right. And you were on, probation, and you got graded. And if you didn't do good, you were out. And then the third year, we signed a waiver that, without any question, without any arbitration, if you mess up, they just tell you, you're no good, you're out, and you can't fight it. And then they started slowly working you into the rotation on 4 and 6 rounders. and you got graded by an evaluator, and here we are 22 years later.
Wow. So it sounds like it's a very, strenuous process to go through.
It was, and I wish it was back. I wish they had it now. It's part of the problem with boxing. We have sanctioning bodies. We have, 6 big ones, and we have commissions. We have 50 in the United States, plus all the tribal commissions. And the problem with it is there's no single entry point for fighters and officials. So literally, you could be working in Home Depot today, and a week from now, you could be judging a fight. And if you're really your father's connected, you could be reffing a fight, God forbid. But that's a part of the problem. The NFL and Major League Baseball and basketball and stuff, you go through one entry point. You go through MLB or the NL, or you know what I mean? And they put you through the rigors, and they make sure you've had 500 amateur games that you've officiated or whatever, and you're graded all along the way. And that just didn't happen. That don't happen across the board. I wish it did more, here.
One thing I wanted to touch on that every time I'm watching a fight on television, especially when I'm with friends or family who they're not hardcore boxing fans, they're casual fans just enjoying the fight, and but they know enough to see, you see the same rotation of veteran referees. I've had instances where you've reffed the fight outside of California.
Sure.
And the people I've been watching with have asked me, hey, I thought he was a California referee. Like, oh no, they're able to go. There's a process they can go through. Can you just touch on that, on how you as a professional referee are able to work other commissions, not just in the States but in other countries as well?
Okay, so again, there's commissions, and then there's sanctioning bodies. So you work in your state usually, but then a lot of guys, they call up and they solicit and they apply to work in neighboring states. And if they're so fortunate enough that state needs the help, they'll take them. Also, sanctioning bodies will assign you to fights. So my primary work is here in California, but a while back, some of the Vegas officials were getting kind of old. So Bob Bennett reached out and asked a few of us if we'd like to be Vegas refs. We went through a little bit of a process because he had known our work. So I'm one of 4 guys in the world that also works in Las Vegas, only when they have the need. That's why you guys remember when Canelo fought Triple G that third time, it was Benji Esteves from New York who did the fight.
Right, exactly, yeah.
He's one of the 4, and Canelo's camp or Triple G's camp for some reason turned down the refs that they were offering up at the time. For whatever reason it is, that gets to happen. So that's how I get to work in Vegas and here, but also I worked in Nebraska and Tennessee and Atlanta recently, and Alabama. Those commissions, God bless them, they recognize that they're only doing 2 fights a year, and I don't do all of these, but we do 102 to 120 fights a year in California. So I'm getting probably 36 to 45 fights a year, cards of fights where I'm doing multiple fights, and all the guys here are. So, for the experience factor, we have a greater pool of depth with the guys who are reffing and judging. So those states who have a big event, they want it to go successful, they will reach out to my commissioner and ask, hey, we'd like to get your recommendation on a guy. And I got fortunate enough to get brought to other states. And as far as around the world, there's fights, and they want a seasoned referee, and they'll ask, the sanctioning body will put up 5 names, and they will choose one of the 5 names, or the promoter and the camps will give them 5 names and tell them we want these guys. And if they're members, I'll take them. And there's a lot of politics involved, but that's why, it's another reason why we don't announce fights.
Right.
Who's reffing the fight, because there's so much politics involved. The referees will get bounced after time, but also it'll give anything that'll happen. If you knew I was a fight of Triple G Canelo, just say, right, a month or 6 weeks out, anything I did at another fight, or I was seen, or I was asked a question, the perception might be I'm favoring one guy.
Right.
Guess what? I'm going to get booted out of the fight. So I don't want that to happen. And it happened to a referee innocently 2 years. Did you guys hear the story about Kenny Bayless with McGregor and Mayweather?
You have to refresh our memory. Maybe. There was a lot of stuff going on with that event.
he very innocently got asked 2 years.
Oh, it was a YouTube interview. That's right.
Yeah, some guy asked him, what do you think? He goes, I don't like that stuff. I don't think it should happen. Mm-hmm. And Dana White got a hold of that tape and said he will not be in the building that night.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
That's why they don't put out the name of the referees and the judges. They don't want the opportunity also for some industrious type of promoter to go over and try to bribe the guy or do something like that, God forbid, or even the perception of it, you know.
So you mentioned how Benji was the referee for Canelo Triple G 3, or was it 2? I forgot.
It was the last one.
It was the last one. It was the last one. It was 2. Yeah, 2. Since you're a part of that small group, were you? I mean, I don't know if you can divulge it, but were you approached, or was your name kind of thrown in the mix for that fight?
My name was in there, absolutely.
It was?
I know. I was told my name was in there, and I was sitting there like this, going, "Man, I didn't get the call, so it is what it is."
Is there any other fights high profile fights like that you almost had the gig, but they went with another veteran referee?
Yeah, and there was one that I actually got the fight, was assigned the fight, was getting ready to make my travel reservations and all that stuff, and someone in one of the camps had me taken off, and that was Froch and Groves in Wembley.
Wow.
And you know, sometimes, to be very frank with you, it has nothing to do with the ref or the judge.
Right.
One of the cornermen or the promoter want to get an edge and create an edge, and they'll say, well, I don't want that guy. He's the first guy, and if you do anything else, we're going to protest this. So they take the guy off, and he's just collateral damage. He didn't do it. It happens.
Jack, how do you prepare for the big fights? I watched your previous interview where you said that you actually watch video and look for fighters' tendencies.
Yep. Well, I prepare myself the same way all the time. But with the bigger fights, I get an opportunity to either have reffed the guy before or both guys before. But if not, it's usually, if it's a big fight, there's plenty of fights of the guy on YouTube. So I will always watch, first of all, I go to Box Rec to see if I haven't reffed him. Is it a righty or a lefty? What's the guy's normal weight? What's he done in his last fights? Has he ever won at this weight? Say he's coming up from welterweight to super welterweight or junior middleweight. And I want to watch how he's done in those weight classes to see how he's going to handle the weight gain and stuff like that. Because sometimes you don't bring your power. Or if a guy's coming down, sometimes you don't. You come in and you're drained, you're empty. And I'm looking for tendencies. I'm looking for that kind of information, but I'm also looking, is he a righty against a lefty? Because, man, it's a different fight with a righty against a lefty. It's much more difficult for a referee. You got to change your positioning because, usually we look from the top of the head through the shoulders, maybe through the chest, like a square in there. Mm-hmm. But when you got a righty against a lefty, because the nature of the way they're going to step and punch, you got to stay back enough to see their feet because their heads are going to collide, their elbows, their shoulders, their feet are going to get entangled. And you don't want to ever call a knockdown a slip or vice versa because you missed what happened with the feet. So there's that preparation. Then I'm looking at fights to see tendencies. So I'm going to give you a great example. I did a lot of research on Tyson Fury before I did their first fight. So when I went into the dressing room, a couple of the things that I told each fighter, like I told Deontay Wilder, okay, so one of the things you got to watch out for me tonight is you got to not throw those big looping punches because if he doesn't turn his head and you hit him behind the head, I'm not going to call it a knockdown and I'm not going to call it a legal punch. So you got to straighten up that punch and don't, hit with I'm trying to get in the camera. Don't hit with the palm of the hand like he has a tendency of doing when he's doing the bomb squad. Second thing is what I told Wilder is he likes to use his left hand as like a spear and hold his opponent's head, leave his arm straight out without punching, and put his hand in the fighter's face so the fighter can't see when he's going to drop the right hand. It's illegal. You can't leave your hand out there, especially if you touch the guy's face. It's like holding and hitting or spearing. So I warned him in the dressing room, and he did it 0 times in the ring. Well, Tyson Fury, I went in and I said, Tyson, there will be none, the nice way. I'm kidding with you now, but I said, there will be none of that. I don't know if you've ever watched Tyson. He'll hold the rope with his right hand, dive out and throw a jab with his left, and use the ropes to spring him back out of range so the guy can't counter. You're not allowed to do that. Second thing I told Tyson is no backhands. He has a tendency, instead of throwing where's that screen there? instead of throwing the jab straight, to throw it as a backhand and hit with the back part of the glove, and that's legal. And he didn't do any of it in the ring. I told him each a few more things, but that's the for instance of the preparation of that actual fight. And then my personal preparation is before the fight, I'm watching videos of the guys. I'm watching videos of fights of myself. And I have a book that I started 20 years ago. I'm trying to get it framed. 20 years ago. And this book has rules, regulations, and scenarios that I have in it. I don't know if I can get it in there. Rules, regulations, and scenarios that I go through. And that's 22 years of scenarios. Each one of those paragraphs is a scenario that I walk through in my head. The reason why is in baseball, in football, in hockey, what happens before the game starts? The umpire gets to go behind the plate and watch 50 to 100 pitches. The refs on the rink and the NHL, they get to skate around the rink and get warmed up. Football, they're doing the practice plays. They're in their position. They're moving, right? Me, we get in the ring, the bell rings. They could be knockdowns and all kinds of stuff from the first second. So this is my personal way of getting in the zone. So when I get in that ring, I've been thinking boxing, watching boxing, and moving around. If I haven't reffed in over 2 weeks, I go to Robert Garcia's gym and the old gym, and I'll walk around. I'll move around with the guys while they're sparring. And by the time I step in that ring, I am fully focused on what I'm about to do, and I won't get caught short and cold, as they say, and stuff like that. And then the last 2 days, I treat myself like a fighter. There's no alcohol. I get plenty of rest. I eat people think I'm nuts. I eat a huge meal the day of the fight, right? As close as I can to fight time, I eat a huge meal because for me personally, if I get there 3 or 4 hours before the fight. By the time I'm in that ring, I don't want to be empty. So I eat a big meal. So that's not, that gut isn't making noises, and it's worked for me so far.
You mentioned the Tyson Fury Wilder fight. Can you just clear up all the drama that they had with Tyson Fury's gloves supposedly not fitting, and he had his fist further down and he was punching with that part of the hand?
Yeah. Well, let me just tell you about the gloves. So I wrote a couple notes. Let me explain the process, because this is great education for the people that are casual fight fans as well. So a day before the fight, actually, let me back up and say this. A fighter can choose his own gloves. Like if he's sponsored by Everlast or Reyes or Grant, they will provide him with gloves of his choice based upon what he likes and stuff like that. And they give those gloves to the promoter, and then the promoter gets them to the arena and gives them to the commission. If not, the promoter will provide gloves based upon what was written in the contract. They might have both asked for Reyes MX50s. They might have both asked to not use those gloves, whatever. So the day before the fight, there's the official weigh-in. Right after the weigh-in takes place, there's the glove selection and the rules meeting. And what happens is the fighters go into a separate room. You get rid of the press, and the fighters go into a separate room. And the gloves that were chosen or provided, there's 2 or 3 of each pair. And the fighters, witnessed by the other camp in that room, tries those gloves on and chooses a right and a left glove. And then our inspectors take those gloves, write on it number 1, on the one right and one left, number 1, and on the backups, number 2, and both camps sign the gloves. Those gloves then stay with the inspector that was chosen. He takes them home with him. Before he goes home, he goes to like a facility, maybe a post office, and actually weighs them on a scale that they weigh letters to make sure that 10-ounce glove is 10 ounces. Because if it's under too much or over too much, we're throwing those gloves out and we aren't using them. And every now and then you'll find a defective glove and we got to redo it last minute. No big deal. It happens. That inspector has those gloves, and about 2 hours prior to fight time, the inspector will deliver the gloves to the corner. And there is another inspector in that room who is assigned to that fighter from the moment he walks into the building. He's assigned to that fighter, stays with him to make sure there's no illegal substances taken, usually does the random drug testing where he urinates into a drug test kit, and he stays with him the whole time. We're watching, and so is the other corner comes in and watches the hand wraps. Both the inspector signs off on the hand wraps. and puts enough stuff through it where if they tried to take off the tape to do something, you can never line up the lines again. So that doesn't get done. And then he puts the gloves on and the inspector tapes it. So I don't know where these guys are getting this theory that he was punching the wall 50 times or he didn't have his hand in the glove. It's stupid. And they're reaching for something that's really not there. They are really uneducated, or they're just reaching for some reason.
Well, isn't it more like, because obviously the more attention a fight gets, the more high profile it gets, obviously the more eyeballs and the more opinions you're going to see. So, I mean, that was obviously I had a lot of attention, especially in terms of actual boxing fans. So, I mean, you being in the game, don't you agree that the more attention a fight has, the more scrutiny you're going to get?
110% correct. And additionally, people ask me this question all the time. What's different being a referee now than it was, 20, 30 years ago? When I grew up, and I wanted to know the results of a fight that happened on a Friday night in Madison Square Garden, if I didn't listen to it on the radio or see it on television, the only way I knew about the fight was I picked up that day's social media, which was the newspaper. And if they didn't have a little blurb in it that said, fighter so-and-so won, I didn't know who won. Today, before I step out of the ring, the freaking fight's on YouTube. It's everywhere. It's all over the world. So the scrutiny is literally, I'm not even exaggerating at all, 100 times what it was 30 years ago. And the bad part about it is social media. Everyone's got a phone. Everyone's making a tape. And a lot of guys, they feel and truthfully so, I agree with it. They feel so excited about being in the arena. They're taping and they're posting. Right. I had great seats at this fight and stuff like that. But, there are haters out there. It doesn't matter what you do. You could, whatever. There's people that hate fighters. There's people hate refs. There's people hate whatever. They're always going to put something up controversial to bring attention to themselves, to maybe have a voice. You guys know them, keyboard warriors.
Yeah.
Jack, you earned a lot of praise for your handling of the Deontay Wilder-Tyson Fury fight, the first fight, where despite a huge knockdown by Tyson, you actually, did the whole 10 count, letting it up, gave him some time. Can you just tell us, kind of what went through your mind during that period?
That's a great question. I've answered this, many times, stuff like that. So, first of all, this was a heavyweight championship fight that was extremely close, was very spirited, and they were in the last round of the fight, okay? Yeah. And there hadn't been a lot of huge damage prior to that point. There weren't, other than the 9th round knockdown, which was more of a balance issue. Fury got knocked off balance. He didn't get dropped where he lost muscle control. It was just an off balance thing, more like a flash knockdown, but not exactly. So I had a guy that was in the 12th round without a lot of damage prior. He went down with a thunderous combination. I give you that. But I've also always been taught to count a champion out. So here's the 12th round of a heavyweight, title bout with lots of eyes on it. I don't want to rush to judgment. And then this is where I'm going to tell you my EMT and experience came in. So my job is to very quickly get the standing fighter away, going to a neutral corner, and pick up the count. I watched Fury go down, immediately pointed for Wilder to go to the neutral corner, spun my head and picked up the count of 1 from the timekeeper. Turned back 2, 3 in my head as I was moving towards him. And let me say this too. I was 6 feet away from those guys in my position when Fury got hit. And Fury fell away from me, which gave me at least 12 feet from his face. I couldn't see his face.
Just a sec.
Plus his chest.
I couldn't.
Sorry.
It's okay.
He's barrel chested and his head was below his chest. So I really couldn't see his face or his eyes. But what I did notice, as soon as I turned around to start walking to him, his right leg was up in the air. His right leg was resting on his right foot. If you're unconscious, that thing is flopped over and you're out. The way he was holding it up, he had to be holding it. That wasn't an unconscious person. So I said, let me see what I got. As I took the 2 steps in, I could see his eyes were actually open. They weren't open all the way. He was like, squinting and grunting, but his eyes were open. And as I got close to him on 3 and bent down, he tracked me with his eyes. So I knew he was awake, at that point. So I started with 4, and at 5, his eyes popped wide open and, gave a little bit of a grunt and a shake of his head or something. And he rolled over and started getting up. And I want to explain this to everybody. I want to be able to say this. I'm glad you guys are giving me opportunity. People think my count was long are either haters, uninformed, or just full of shit. And I love the fact that you're giving me an opportunity to express this. A knockdown is any time due to a legal punch or punches that any part of a fighter's body other than the soles of his feet touch the ground, touch the canvas. Also, due to legal punch or punches, the only thing holding up a fighter is the ropes. It's a knockdown, okay? In this case, he got knocked down legally, okay? When I was counting, as I said the word 9, his right hand came off the mat and he was rising. There's no more count. I can't say 10 as he's rising. He's up. My job goes from counting. Once I reach 8, it's a mandatory 8 count. So once I reach 8, if no part of his body other than the soles of his feet are on the ground, it changes from a count to an assessment. And that's what I did. I went to see if he was able to intelligently defend himself from that point. And, you guys, I don't know if you've seen a lot of this lately, but there are some referees that will ask the fighter who is knocked down questions and then make the fighter walk straight to him. Others will ask him questions and make him walk to the right or the left. Mm-hmm. Let me explain. This is now being instituted into the ABC referees manual, making the fighter walk to the right or left. And here's why. In the old days when Jack Dempsey fought and Jack Johnson, when those guys got knocked down, Dempsey or Johnson would stand behind the fighter, behind his butt. So this guy's messed up and he's leaning on his hands and they stood behind him. And as soon as their hands came off the mat, they were allowed to hit him from behind. So this was so brutal and guys were getting hurt. They instituted rules of you're not allowed to hit a fighter as he's rising from a knockdown. But that got later taken out of effect when they said once a fighter is down, because they knew it was still brutal, he just gets up to his feet and the referee can't tell if he's ready to go or not. So they said, okay, from now on, maybe in the 50s, I don't even know when they changed it. From now on a knockdown, there's going to be the standing fighter has to go to a neutral corner and stay in that corner until the referee says box. And the rising fighter gets a mandatory 8 count so the referee can assess his condition. Are we on the same page?
Right.
So 25 years ago, they realized getting him up, wiping his gloves, and saying go isn't enough because instinctually some of these guys can get on their feet. So they started checking their ability to control their own body, if they know where they are and stuff. And they know they have to defend themselves. So they started asking them questions. Are you okay? Can you continue? And then they went even further. Well, maybe let's see if he can carry his weight. They made him walk to him. Well, in the later day, in this modern day now, for the last 5 years, the ringside physicians, who some of them are neurosurgeons, told us any drunk can stagger forward. Mm-hmm. You got to make them walk to the right or left. And let me back up and say this and give you the perfect analogy to the haters.
Yeah.
Cop is driving down the street. He's doing his, patrol, and he sees a car going 70 miles an hour, weaving in and out of traffic in front of a school at 3 p.m. He pulls the guy over. He tells him, roll down the window. Guy rolls down the window. Cop smells alcohol, right? Mm-hmm. He says to the guy, sir, have you been drinking? And the guy says, no, officer. Is the cop going to go, okay, thank you, and drive away?
Right.
He's going to get him out, and he's going to give him a sobriety test. Mm-hmm. Well, we now give the referee sobriety test. Why? Because I just had a guy right in front of me. I saw the mechanism of injury. I saw this guy get hit where his head snapped and his brain rattled against his cage. And I saw his body language where he lost control of his body and fell straight down, whacked his head on the canvas, and now he's rising. I can't just let him go. I got to give him a referee sobriety test. I got to make him demonstrate he knows who he is, where he is, why he's there. How do you do that? You okay? Yes. Do you want to continue? Yes. Put your hands up. Walk to the right, walk to the left to demonstrate to the fans, the commission, the doctors, and everyone watching he's in full control of his body. And that's exactly what Tyson Fury did. And just recently, I'm fortunate to be involved with the ABC, and I'm on the rules committee for the ABC, and they just accepted our proposal of instituting it that now on, not on every knockdown, a flash knockdown, you don't need to use it. Early in the fight, guy gets knocked down, a flash knockdown, he's up by 3, telling you get out of the way. You don't have to make him walk and waste time. But if you have a damaged fighter that in the history of that fight has been down before, or he's been taking a beating, he has visible physical damage, you're even wondering if he has a mathematical chance to win on the scorecards. You know he's been taking the beating, and he gets dropped dramatically hard. You give him that referee sobriety test.
Jack, with an interview you did with BT Sport afterwards, you said that you count the Fury as the best decision of your career so far. I was just wondering, what's your top 3?
Okay. Top 3. Number 1 is Tyson Fury because the scrutiny and the magnitude of the fight, I was comfortable with what I did under that grade of pressure. Okay. And I'm very happy with the decision. Second one would have to be, do you guys remember when Andre Ward fought La Bamba, Edwin Rodriguez?
Mm-hmm.
Was that up down here?
It was out by you, man. It was in Citizens Bank Arena.
It was right down the street right here. Yeah.
So I got to tell you guys, I walked into that arena and you could cut the tension with a knife. Those guys hated each other so bad. I swear to God, the whole place was tense. I got immediately walking in with my uniform on my shoulders. I got approached by the first promoter, then the cornerman of the second fighter. And in the dressing room, I couldn't even get my instructions out because I was getting interrupted by corner people and the fighters. You better watch, he does this. You better watch, he does that. And it was like, I was doing everything I could just to calm them down in the dressing room. And, man, I knew it was going to be ugly. And if you guys don't remember, I'm going to remind you. So La Bamba was really mouthing off to Andre Ward, trying to get under his skin, and he did. And Edwin, I think, in my opinion, purposefully missed weight. He wanted to come in a little heavy to get a little advantage, and he did. And you guys might not know this, but they had to weigh in at a certain time. Mm-hmm. And La Bamba didn't make weight. So they had a rule. They're going to give him a chance to make the weight. He forfeited. He was making $1 million. He forfeited $200,000 for not making weight. And 100 went to Andre Ward, and I think 100 went to the state. I don't remember the exact amounts. So then the next morning, they're supposed to weigh him in at 9:00. So there was some guys in Andre Ward's corner, which I don't think he had after that fight anymore, that actually went down and stole the digital scale and the wire so the guy couldn't weigh in to make him stay that weight and drain him as much as they could, as close as they can get to the fight. Is that insane? This is professional sport. And that's just a picture of what was going on in there. And I kept them apart during the pre-fight instructions, held their gloves, touched their gloves, and pushed them out of the way. And the first 4 rounds were just nasty, ugly, grit, playground, shoulders, elbows, wrestling, headbutt. And this was the main event on HBO with Lampley, Kellerman, and Jones. It was a big deal. So I didn't want to take points. I didn't want to disqualify. So I was trying to use my people skills to calm them down. And I was giving them warnings and going into the corner between rounds and imploring them, come on, guys, you got to knock that off. Stop this and stop that. And every time I went in one of the guys' corner, but he's doing this. He's like a little kid, like 2 brothers fighting, and you tell one kid, but so-and-so's doing that. It was the same exact thing. It was pandemonium. So in the 4th round, they got tied up early in the 4th round where Andre was bobbing and weaving, and Andre's head ended up in La Bamba's chest. And La Bamba wrapped his right arm around Andre's, like a rear naked, or a guillotine, not a rear naked, a guillotine. Mm-hmm. And he actually lifted and was choking Andre. And I was yelling stop as I was coming in to break him. And La Bamba wasn't stopping. And Andre started throwing punches over the top. So I literally physically jumped in to split him up, and I grabbed Andre to spin him off. I got hit in the face by Rodriguez. I shoved them both. To make a long story short, I took 2 points from each guy, and I asked the commission, and they did, to fine each fighter.
Oh, wow.
And they did. And I took my time because this was spiraling out of control, and I wanted to break the momentum. So I took my time. I walked across the ring, came back, warned both guys, took my time, let about 1.5 to 2 minutes go by, and I brought him to Sam, and I said, the next guy is getting disqualified. Nobody's getting paid. Somebody gets disqualified. And they calmed down. We had a pretty good fight for the next 10 rounds, for the next 8 rounds.
When you talk money and says nobody's getting paid, then they get serious, right?
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. And there's a lot of fights. The third, like you asked the 3 best. The next one I'd say was there's a lot of fights that we stop. I think one of the best things I did, because it was the right thing to do, was when you stop a fight and people are booing you because they don't understand what they're seeing. Mm-hmm. Like I did Wilder and Duhaupas, and Duhaupas's chin.
That was New York, right?
Sorry?
Mm-hmm. That was in New York?
Nope. It was in Alabama.
Oh, Alabama. That's right.
And Duhaupas's chin and grit and heart was too much for his ability. Wilder was pummeling this guy, and this guy would not go down. And his face was banged up. And we reached a point in the fight that Duhaupas couldn't win mathematically. He had a puncher's chance, but he really hadn't been landing it. And then he was fighting basically defensive for most of the time, just looking to get that one good shot in. And he had visible physical damage. And I said to myself, what's the point? Mm-hmm. And I stopped it in like the 10th after a really bad volley that snapped his head. And you know what? You don't know who you save. You just, you know what I mean? You know who you lose. God forbid that happens. But you don't know the fighters you save, and you got to pull them out of there.
So, Jack, Mike, I think Mike will probably jump on this question, but because before you had came on, we were talking about the Chavez Meldrick Taylor fight from back in the day. I think Mike knows a little bit more details about the question, so go ahead, take it away, Mike.
Jack, you did a fight this year. It was Brian Perella against Abel Ramos, which was very, very reminiscent of Chavez and Taylor. Perella was ahead on the cards going into the last round. It was a 10-round fight. There was a handful of seconds left. Abel Ramos knocks him down, and then you waved it off. And obviously his corner were kind of pissed because obviously there was only, 2-3 seconds left, and he was, quite ahead on the scorecards. So I was just wondering, as the referee, do you think about that? Do you think, there's only a couple of seconds left, he could probably walk across the other side of the ring and the fight would have been called off?
Sure, I think about it. Well, let me ask you guys a question. Mm-hmm. Why do you guys think I stopped the fight?
For his safety.
How about you, Danny?
Yeah, I agree, because I mentioned we had talked right before you came on, and we were talking about that. Like, well, only you're looking a fighter in the eye. So, as you mentioned your training and all that stuff. So, that would be our guess.
So I want your opinion, and I want you guys to feel free to call bullshit on whatever I'm saying right now. You cannot hurt my feelings. If you don't agree, I'd love to hear what you got to say. But when I tell you this, you might go, wow, I never thought about that. I didn't stop that fight for safety. I did not stop it for safety. Prior to the last knockdown, there was 2 knockdowns right at the end. Prior to the second knockdown, the timekeeper gave the 10-second warning, and I acknowledged the 10-second warning by pointing to the timekeeper. So I knew he was not going to take another punch because he went down maybe 3 seconds after that 10-second warning, and I had to go through my, check, so the clock would have been out by the time I said box. I did not stop it for safety. The reason I stopped it is this, okay? Perella was winning the fight, but he wasn't winning. He might have been ahead on all scorecards every single round, but there were a lot of close rounds in there. This guy Ramos wasn't out of that fight, and Ramos was doing what he needed to do, knowing he was behind, and he put the pressure on. Additionally, throughout that whole fight, Perella got pretty banged up. It was no easy fight. His face was marred because they did a lot of back and forths. Even though Perella might have won the round, he took some good shots. So the 12th round comes. We got about 20 to 30 seconds left, and Perella gets hit with an uppercut that I give him all the credit in the world that he got up, because there's different types of punches have different effects. Hooks and uppercuts are way worse than straight punches, and I can get into the physiology of why that happens. What happens to the brain when the head's going back and forth compared to what happens to the brain when there's a snapping motion, what happens inside the skull. The hooks and uppercuts are way more dangerous. And that was demonstrated by Perella's body language. He didn't fall backwards. He melted straight down to the ground. He lost all of his muscle control. Two things went through my head. 12th round, I got to give the guy, or 10th round, last round, I got to give the guy a shot on a really devastating knockdown. And I started counting because he deserved that opportunity. What surprised me was he got up so quick. A seasoned veteran hit with a shot like that will stay on his knee, take some nice deep breaths, take the count 8 or 9 and pop up at the end. So he's got his head together, his composure. Perella popped right up. So the first thoughts through my head was, this guy either received terrible training or he's really buzzed and it's instinctual. He's just popping up, okay? So then after a knockdown like that, I'm looking for how the fighter responds. A fighter can run, hold, fight back, bob and weave, take a knee, spit out his mouthpiece, hit the other guy in the groin, get a point taken away and get another 10 to 15 seconds worth of rest. They can do a lot of things. The least thing that I want to see them do is just stand there and fight back. The first thing I want to see them do is run, because that means they got their composure, they got their legs. If they can't run, hold. Just stall, hold. And if I'm saying let go, don't even let go. Hold and make me break you. I'm not going to take points unless it's egregious. I get what they're doing. I'm happy that they're thinking, Mm-hmm. And if they spit out their mouthpiece, they're going to get the point taken away. They're going to get that extra rest, but they lost the point, which makes it very hard for them. 1 or 2 points in a fight, it really changes, especially on a close fight, can change anything. But they're thinking, I'm happy. So after the knockdown, Perella got up, and he didn't have his legs, obviously. After the first knockdown, he kind of just melted back into the ropes, had the earmuffs on, tried throwing some punches that had nothing on him, and then took one step and got hit with a punch that he had no balance and knocked him flying. You guys please watch it again, into the ropes. And then he got up again. Again, he didn't take it on a knee. He popped right up. And the next thing he did was he put his hands on the ropes, which tells me he's dizzy. Fighters don't put their hands on the rope unless they're looking, to get their bearing. I made him get his hands off the ropes. And this time I said, "You okay?" He said, "Yes." I take 3 steps and turn and come back to me. And as he was on his 3rd step, he stumbled. He couldn't keep his balance, and he couldn't stop, and he kept going into his corner. So at that point, I had a choice. And what I said to myself is, if there was more time in this fight, I would have never let that guy continue because he's wasted. So how can I stall and go, hey, I know there's no more time on the clock, so let me just stall, say box, knowing the round's over, and let it go to scorecards? Abel Ramos put him in that condition. Abel Ramos deserved the TKO. He did his job. So and let me tell you something. 3 things in boxing. First thing a fighter wants to do is knock the shit out of his opponent and knock him out. Second thing he needs to do, knock the crap out of his opponent till the guy quits, the corner throws in the towel, or he forces the referee to stop the fight. And when you can't do the first 2, you try to outpoint him. You try to win more rounds. Ramos did number 2. It didn't matter how much time was left. He rendered that guy unable to continue. And controversial or not, I respect everybody's opinion, but not you. But those guys aren't the guys in there tasked with the authority and the responsibility to do what's fair, and that's what I did. And until some major sanctioning body or my commission sits me down and says, what you did is wrong, I'm going to keep doing it this way on fairness. So now, hit me with your best shot on that, guys.
Has anybody ever told you, like, for example, Andy Foster's obviously your boss for the commission. He's the head honcho of the California Commission. We've had him on our show, by the way. He was on a couple months ago. And has there ever been a time
commission we've ever had here? He's the best.
Yeah. We've been hearing about that. Yeah, he's very knowledgeable. He was a fighter. So.
You could YouTube videos of him boxing and doing MMA.
Right. Yeah. That's
crazy.
Everything.
Promotion, judging, refereeing. So
the reason I brought him up, because you kind of made me think about it. You mentioned, like, if like your boss or somebody high ranking in the commission sits you down and says, hey, you know what, this was wrong. Has that ever happened in your career?
Of course.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. I mean, I mean, like, what? Can you give an example of what one decision?
Okay, I got two of them for you. Okay, Austin Trout was fighting a guy named Joey Hernandez. Austin Trout was shellacking Joey Hernandez. It was like a tune-up fight in between. Joey's a good kid, hard. His father I know real well, but he was losing, and he was losing badly. And it got to a point where Joey Hernandez grabbed Austin Trout, picked him up, and threw him down on the ground. And Austin rolled over, got up, and I checked him. He was fine. So I called time. I gave him a really hard warning, and I took 1 point from Hernandez for doing what he did. So we got in the dressing room, and Andy, in front of everybody in that dressing room, he solicited their input. Said, I thought that was terrible. I thought that was the wrong thing, what you did. That was an egregious foul. You should have taken 2 points. And I said, I respect your opinion, but you should really ask me first why I didn't, And this was my viewpoint on it. Hernandez was losing. He got frustrated, and he picked up Trout, and he didn't throw him over his shoulder. He picked him up over his head, and then he held him, and about just below his shoulders, he let him go. So Trout fell about 2 feet, but Trout's athletic. He rolled up, and he did not get hurt at all. So how much damage was done? 0. The guy was frustrated, and he did something out of frustration. He was losing every round of the fight. My personal opinion was, do I want to take 2 points away from this guy and make him more frustrated and put him into a corner where he says, I can't win this fight? Then he's going to really go out and do something like bite his ear or break Trout's arm or something like that, and we'll have a riot on our hands. Most of the time when a guy does something like that, he's in desperation, and he's probably going to get knocked out pretty soon after that, and that's exactly what happened. Trout came out and finished him, more so that he barraged him, and Joey went down for a knockdown and decided to stay there as I was counting to 10. So now that doesn't mean I'm right, and my boss is my boss. To me, I learned, okay, he wants on egregious looking fouls for the optics, he wants me to take more than 1 point. And then the same thing happened on a fight I did where you guys, this is educational too. And it was Mexico against the Philippines in the StubHub. I don't know what year it was, but the Philippine fighter was beating the Mexican fighter pretty good. And they were in the center of the ring, and he hit him with the Philippine guy hit him with a pretty good volley and finished with a left hook to the liver. And the Mexican guy covered up and started going backwards. The Philippine stopped thinking he was going down, and then the Mexican guy didn't take a knee. So and I was walking in to get to him. So the Philippine realized he didn't go down. Let me go finish this guy and go charging in to finish. And as the Mexican guy sees the Philippine coming, he goes, shit, I don't want no more of this. And suddenly takes a knee. Well, the Philippine already had it in his head and was winding up. So just as the Philippine's knee hit the ground, the Mexican guy's knee hit the ground, the Philippines' punch went off, and he hit him while the guy was down. But the punch grazed the Mexican guy's head. So I took 1 point in that situation because what Andy at the time didn't understand, or, the optics look bad, but he doesn't understand. Intentional fouls with injury, mandatory 2 points. Intentional fouls without injury, it's up to the discretion of the referee. You guys can look it up on the ABC. So the only time you're ever going to see it, you should ever see a guy take 2 points, is on an intentional foul with injury. So in this case, let me tell you how I judged it. I say to myself, when a guy goes down like that and then he gets hit while he's down, what put him down? What's keeping him down? Was the punch that put him down the one that's keeping him there? Well, look, if that second punch to the head would have been bad enough, that fighter that was on his knee would have flopped over and fell to the canvas because he took a headshot. That guy was sitting there on his knee, wincing in the pain from the liver shot. He never moved off his knee. So the second shot had very little effect. I took 1 point. And that's That's what people don't understand. Like this. That's how fast it happens. And you got to understand what you're looking at and render those decisions based on safety and fairness. So Andy wasn't happy about that. He wanted me to take 2 points. So let's fast forward. You ready?
Ready. Yeah.
KSI is fighting Logan Paul.
Okay.
KSI, Logan Paul hits KSI with a beautiful uppercut, a clean shot. Then he grabs KSI behind the head and holds his head and hits him with a second uppercut.
Right.
He's on the way down, and Logan hits him with 2 more shots. Did they do damage? No. But the first one was egregious enough, and the 2 more, I had to make a statement because it was egregious. And here's the thing: people don't understand. If I would have taken 1 point, it would have been 9-9, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
All I wanted to do was even out the round to wipe that out without penalizing somebody too bad where they couldn't win. So in this case, because I wanted to make a statement, you could watch the fight again. I initially went down, and then I waved the knockdown off because when I realized the holding behind the head punch was what put him down. So I went down, and then I waved it off. But when I called time, it gave me a chance to think and contemplate what would be the best thing for me to do for boxing in this case. And I said, I'll tell you what, if I take 2 points and I scored a knockdown, he gets 2 points for the knockdown, 2 points taken away. Instead of 9-9, we got 8-8. What's the difference?
Right.
Well, everybody's hammering me about, you took 2 points. He did the same thing. He's taking 1 point. But it's people that don't understand. So Andy was happy because I made a statement that he wants the California Athletic Commission of referees to make that those type of things won't be accepted here. And I didn't affect the fight any different than 1-1. You know what I mean? 9-9.
Right.
Jack, is there a process that happens if you consistently make, bad decisions, or a judge is handing in consistently bad cards?
Can you ask the question again? I'm not really sure what you're saying.
Like, is there a process of discipline? Like, if you consistently make mistakes, or if a judge is consistently handing in bad cards, do they miss a few weeks? Are they relegated to 4 and 6 rounders?
Absolutely. So after Andy and Mark Relier, who's the best chief inspector we've ever had too, a retired LA County sheriff, who I told you I sat in a dressing room with, wrapped up, ready to fight. So those guys scrutinize every card and they hammer, I swear to God, hammer those judges round per round. So you could have judged 40 rounds of boxing that night, and you were off on 1 round that he felt was wrong. They're giving you a homework assignment of going back, watching that fight and justifying or explaining yourself better on why you did it in that round. And if you were off from everybody else and it was a high-profile fight, you can bet your ass you're going to be sitting on the sidelines and doing some undercard fights for a couple of months before you get back in the ring. And because if you can't justify what you did, he doesn't want to put you in on the high-profile fights. It's just fighters deserve the best. The promoters are paying to have the best in there. And whether you're right or wrong, sometimes they have to do it for optics. Same thing with the referees. If the referees make an egregious mistake and get somebody hurt on something that was obvious, not stop a fight, or what happens a lot, stop fights too quick. They don't understand what they're looking at, and they stop fights too quick. Those guys, as they're climbing the ladder, they take a few steps back and they go a little bit lower back on the ladder. And they got to make those steps back up again. And, it's happened to all of us.
Jack, what's your opinion on open scoring, like they recently brought into some MMA?
I got mixed emotions about it, but the biggest challenge I see with it is that it tends to pressure the judges to change their scores. Not good. So a good example is, say Danny had it 98-94 for the fighter in the red. I had it 98-94 for the fighter in the red. And you had it 98-94 for the fighter in the blue. I guarantee the next 4 rounds, you are freaking out, Michael. You're going, what am I seeing different? And anything close, you're going to give that red fighter that score because you want to get as close to us as possible. And you're not supposed to do that. This is supposed to be 3 independent people seeing it, 3 different views. so they don't see everything exactly the same and come up with a score based upon the 4 criteria of scoring a fight. So that's my first concern. The other thing is, it might tend, and let me say this, we're the only sport, maybe other than gymnastics and Olympics or something like that, where the scorecards aren't read till the end, or nobody really knows who won till the end, and the judges judging don't know what the other judges are thinking.
Mm-hmm.
The only sport that's like that. So the open scoring tends to change that. And, I'm sorry to say it, but you have weak-minded officials that don't want to go against, say, a house fighter or a promoter's fighter, and they might be swayed by that open scoring, and that's what it tends to lead to. And let me say this too. You guys, I swear to you, judging a fight up close and personal around the ring, especially being in the hot seat, is totally a different experience than watching it at home. And I'm going to explain why. People don't understand. You're watching it 3D. You're watching it in live time, 10 feet from the action. You're seeing everything happen in front of you in real life, in real time. When you're watching it on television, you're totally handicapped for a few reasons. One, you're watching it on 2D. You're watching just a picture of this guy moving. But you don't see the impact of the punches. You don't hear the thumping of the punches. That's why sometimes you'll see a fighter who's pitter-patting and getting a lot of little scoring blows in, and a guy who's done less work and's cracking them with those shots, and the fans, vote 2 different ways, and they're all screaming about it. And the guys went with the guy who threw the harder punches because they could hear and see the punches. They could see the reaction on the fighter's skin. They could hear him grunt. They could see him take 2-3 steps back. Not only that, I'm telling you as a referee, it's the same thing. The cameras change angles so quickly, and sometimes they put it overhead. You don't really see the picture. They're doing it for entertainment. You miss sometimes the bottom half of their body because they want to unfocus, and you have to see the whole picture. It's way more difficult watching it at home and really get an accurate feel of what it is than being at the ring. So, that tends to contribute to a lot of controversy too. And then people who don't know really what they're looking at.
Yeah. So this will be my final question on my side, Jack. Kind of
throwing in the towel on me, bro. I get it.
Well, we've had you more than an hour. Like we know. Like
I'm kidding, man.
We know you're a busy guy too, and stuff like that. So we don't want to overstay our welcome, of course. But kind of go more on going back on what's going on currently with the whole COVID-19. Obviously, everybody knows there's no current sports happening at the moment, which obviously includes boxing. Have you, being a veteran referee, especially with the largest commission in the United States, and speaking with Andy Foster and everything, has there been discussions or anything about possibly bringing fights back, maybe with just no fans, or is that something that you think Andy Foster would be open to if it came down to that?
All of the possibilities are on the table. We're all missing boxing. People want to get back to work, but obviously we want to do it safely. Dana White and the UFC just tried to hold an event in California against the commission's recommendations, against everyone's recommendations. He was going to do it on the Tachi Palace Indian Reservation. Right. So those are a sovereign nation. They get to do what they want. And I think cooler heads prevailed because the governors or the executives at Disney, who owns UFC, called up and said, no, you're not doing that. Yeah. So boxing will be coming back soon. But I don't know if Andy or anybody told you what we are doing in the interim. So is this thing StreamYard, is this like a Zoom type meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So Andy, as well as now other commissioners have followed suit. Andy put together 3 weeks ago a Zoom meeting. He asked me and some other guys to get some videotapes of the judges, put a few judging rounds on, and I put a few referees rounds on, and then they've had other guys put referees and judges rounds on. And we watched the fight. We've analyzed the round to see how it should have been scored. Not everybody agreed on everything. And we looked at situations of where things happened. A great example, you guys can watch, obviously not now. Kermit Cintron fought Sergio Martinez a few years back. Mm-hmm. Watch round 7. Cintron gets hit with a beautiful left hand, which he thinks is a headbutt. And there's a little bit of a chaos that goes on. As a referee, there are so many things that happen in a very short time period that you would be affected by, and you have to demonstrate good judgment and understanding the rules as a guideline, that it's amazing to watch what happened and really contemplate on what had to be done in those few seconds. So we discussed that, and we outlined what has to be done and all these things. And we've been doing that. We have another one Wednesday, and I have another one on Thursday with Nevada. They're doing it now. And we're training. We're keeping our brains focused. We're reviewing stuff, and I'm watching fights. And, people have been asking me, as yourselves, what fights should I watch? So to me, if you want to see action, watch Gotti Ward, the trilogy, especially round 9 of the first fight. Unbelievable exchange. That's the human spirit. It's what people come to watch boxing for. Neither guy would quit. It was unbelievable. That fight could have been stopped multiple times. It was unbelievable. The same thing for action. If you want to watch action, watch the Hagler-Hearns best 3 rounds in boxing when they fought. 2 other good fights to watch to see how you would judge them now. I would watch Hagler-Leonard, because there was so much controversy on that fight. And you guys judge it. Not you, I mean, whoever judges it.
Right.
Same thing with Wilder-Fury 1. Review that fight, knowing what you know now, and you see who won. And then as far as what to do that would be exciting, if it was me, want to see stuff, I would watch as many fights as I could on Wilder, Fury, Joshua, Ruiz, and Dylan White right now. Because these guys are all going to be beating each other.
Yeah.
Start writing down your predictions and learning. I think he does this better. He does that. I think this one, when they fight, this will happen. And then when they actually eventually fight, you get to see what your predictions were based upon what you watch. And I think it'll be interesting to everybody. Who's going to end up on top of the heap when all these guys end up fighting each other? So that's that's what I think.
Actually, I got one more. Would you ever be open to, or would Andy Foster be open to, like the commission putting out commentary, like from yourself, like you're analyzing one of your fights, like let's just say Wilder Fury, just one that everybody knows, and you're analyzing, like you're commentating on the fight as it, like on a YouTube video or something, you're saying, oh, okay, this is when I noticed that Fury did this or that, kind of like an educational aspect, like maybe to train future referees?
I don't know if he would do it to train future referees, because we do that all the time. We show not only your own fight scenarios, we show, because I teach in this class I have coming up, which by the way, you guys, I've invited media, and since you both live here, I'm going to give you a cordial invitation. You guys can attend the class. There'll be no charge.
Perfect.
I might not want to drive back to the 909 every night. You might want to get a hotel room and stuff like that. But space permitting, I got to see how many guys. The room is limited, but space permitting. But certainly, if you guys want to come out for a day and stand one of the days, because I got to give the seats to the guys, the referees and stuff like that, come and join us. So you can see what you get a better understanding.
Right.
You got to know, before I knew you guys, I had done this before, and I put it out to quite a few guys, Steve, Kim, whoever, I put it out to all of them. Unfortunately, they don't show up. 2 people showed up, a guy named Ray Markarian and Karen Tate. They flew up to Vancouver, and they spent 3 days with us at the last class. And you asked them how it was. It's eye-opening to see the things that we have to consider. So I'm inviting both of you guys, if you want to come down. You're more than welcome to. And I don't think Andy would mind at all. We could very easily ask him if we could do that. But Andy's all for including the media. There's nothing, we're not hiding anything. If we make a mistake, look, I make mistakes. When I make a mistake, I want to have the fortitude to say, yep, I could have done that better. I could have done that better. I can't take it back. And I always encourage you guys, if they're unhappy, fighters, I've had more than one, let me tell you guys, I've had more than one conversation with a fighter after the fight whose adrenaline's still going, or their cornermen who have been slinging superlatives at me. And I basically say to them, look, man, if you feel something was done in error, please, I implore you, file a protest with the commission. You have 5 days to do that. They'll bring the fight down. They'll show it on a 60-foot screen. And if the commission feels that I've done something wrong, we'll change the decision. I got no horse in the race. If the commission feels I did it wrong, we change it, and I'll learn something from it, and I'll look to do it better. And it's happened before. And the commission has thrown people out because they go, "You're out of your mind." Guy lost every round. I stop a fight, 8-round fight. I stop a fight in the 7th. He's lost every round. And he's getting a shellacking, and he goes, "I stopped the fight too soon." They throw stuff like that out. But there have been absolutely successful fights that have been overturned by the corners because there was a rule violation or that they felt the ref made an egregious mistake. One I can give you was Tim Bradley, Nate Campbell. That was
a good one.
That was overturned.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. Yeah,
Andy loves the media. I'm telling you now.
He does. He does. He was on our show. Yeah, he was on our show a couple months ago, as I mentioned. So, yeah,
can't get a better guy. He wants everything above board. He's proud of what he's doing and what we're doing, and he wants to let people out there. In fact, what he did after the KSI Logan fight, he came into the locker room and grabbed me and the 3 judges, Pat Russell, Lou Moret, and Alejandro Ruchin. He said, "All 3 of you guys come to me right now, all 4 of you guys." And he had us out there with Lance Pugmire, used to be with LA Times.
Right.
And he had Lance interview them about their scoring, and he interviewed me about why I did what I did. And then he said, "You 3 guys can go." And he grabbed me and he says, "You're coming with me." Paul is upset. And we went into the belly of the beast. I went into their locker room, and it wasn't pretty. But I got to tell you something. It's great. Because if you don't go in there and you don't get to explain yourself and agree and disagree like men and women, they walk away with a chip in their shoulder. And I don't have social media outlets. All the public is going to hear is their side of the story. But if they could at least hear why we did what we did, it usually quells the anger and frustration. And guys, because they know you weren't, at least they learn you weren't cheating. This is the way you saw it and stuff like that. So I welcome it. I make a mistake, I got no problem. I can't tell you how many times I've seen guys in an elevator or a hotel, and I've apologized. I go, "Look, if you feel I've made a mistake, please protest it. I won't hold any ill feelings towards you, whatever."
Right.
So, I mean, John Molina Jr.,
right,
when he fought Antonio DeMarco, they weren't happy when I stopped that fight.
That's what happens. You're right.
But they let me know. They let me know. But you know what? To their credit, and we've moved on. And John's no longer a fighter anymore. He's retired, and his father, his parents, his wife, everybody's great. But at the time, they weren't very happy. But
right.
I was put in a situation where I felt I had a duty to act.
Right. No, absolutely. John Molina's been on our show too. He's a great guy. So,
wow, he's a warrior. Can you imagine that kid? Holy mackerel.
Yeah, he was in some great fights. So,
Provodnikov and
Matisse. Those were wild. Those were wild.
They left it in the ring.
But
those are good fights to watch. Danny, those are 2 other good fights.
It is, yeah.
Derby Provodnikov, Matisse, Molina Provodnikov. Those are other great bouts to watch. Wow.
What about the last round of Vargas Bradley at the StubHub? I think Pat Russell was a referee.
Yeah, hey, it's great, and Pat will gladly speak to you about it. In fact, just so you know, that's one of the fights we show in our seminar. And Pat says, "I thought I heard a bell. I made a mistake. When I heard the 10-second warning, I thought I heard a bell. It's on me." And he very shortly after that got out of the game. He said, maybe I'm getting too old, and he got out of the game. Right. And he took responsibility for it. But the thing that people need to understand there was no hanky-panky. There was no cheating. He made a mistake.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jack, we appreciate your time, obviously, and you're more than welcome to jump on anytime you want. I know you have your seminar coming up. I think you pushed it to Labor Day weekend, you mentioned. So
6 September.
So go ahead and plug that one more time for our listeners and our viewers to know about that, and anything else you want to plug. Go ahead.
All right. Well, we're going to have a referees training class for people who are officials. Maybe USA boxing officials that are looking to be getting to the pros, new officials that are looking to up their game, and even seasoned veterans that want to get a little higher in the food chain. It's going to be held on September 4th, 5th, and 6th. The name of the class is Sole Arbiter, because that's what we are in the ring. Sole Arbiter. And you could look us up in the next couple of weeks. You'll probably see it on Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff. And you could find me. My handle on a lot of things is 2Jack Reiss. My email is 2jackreiss@gmail.com, and online it's like @2Jack Reiss, and Twitter or whatever you do with the 2Jack Reiss, that's where it is. And just look for it, and you guys will put it out for me, so they'll be able to find it and inquire about it. Absolutely. 3 hard days, 3 long days.
Absolutely. No, I'm sure. If people, obviously are thinking about jumping into those courses or obviously hearing your guys' instruction, it's not something you want to miss, especially if you live in the Southern California area. Might as well take advantage of an opportunity like that. It's not every day you guys do that.
No, and I want to invite you guys to something else that I just thought about. So since we both live in California and we do fights out in the 909 all the time. I work
everywhere, right.
I work everywhere. But you guys are obviously coming to the Staples Center and to StubHub and places. Anytime I'm reffing, you guys come. When you're coming, send me an email. I'm going to get a credential for you to come into the dressing room with me when I give pre-fight instructions. If you're there the day before, you can accompany me. If I'm doing the championship fight, the main event, the championship fight ref, the main event ref, does the rules meeting the day before. If it's me, please join me at the rules meeting, the glove selection, the whole bit, and then come in the dressing room with me the next day so you could hear firsthand what I'm saying to these guys. And all I do is I try to do what I say and say what I do in the ring. You know what I mean?
That's awesome. That's awesome. We definitely appreciate that, Jack. And I'm sure we'll take you up on that. We've been to numerous events, as media and stuff like that, but we haven't been in the locker room during.
You got to come in with me. It's a great experience. It's a good behind the scenes experience that'll give you guys insight to make you better at doing this. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You'll see stuff you'll go that you never thought about before. You know what I mean? Going on in the locker room, and it's just a cool experience.
Sounds good. Yeah, that works for me. I'm sure it works for Mike too.
The fact that Andy was on your show, when I tell him who it is that we want to bring in, he's going to go, of course,
Oh, yeah. He was great with us.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, he was great with us. Yeah, Andy was awesome. But thanks. But as I mentioned, Jack, thanks again for jumping on. Luckily we're on the West Coast over here, so we don't have the 3-hour time gap that the East Coast has. So it's still a little bit early, and we're all stuck at home pretty much anyway. So, but like I said, anytime you got something you got coming up, like in September, just send us an email. I know you got Mike's email. He's emailed you from the show.
Please, Danny, you got my email address, so Mike will give it to you and send me yours so I can get it.
Right. Yeah. Everything that Mike gets, we share with each other anyways, because I think he's emailed you from our show handle. But either way, I can send that to you. That's no problem.
Yeah, make the contact and we'll stay in touch, and I'll be great.
Sounds good. Well, Mike, tell our listeners and our viewers where they can find our podcast on a weekly basis.
You got at The Last Round 12 on Twitter and Instagram, and you can find us in all the usual places: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Radio Republic, Deezer, everywhere.
Awesome. Well, for my co-hosts, Michael Shepard and Jack Reiss, who is obviously our special guest this week, this is The Last Round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is The Last Round Podcast.